And next little bit, I'm going to tell you about some stuff that's been going on lately in my life. I recently rewatched the series The Misadventures of Flapjack. I remember watching it when it came out back when me and my husband were dating, and I think it might have even been before we were married. Yeah, I think it was before we were married. Yeah, and it's just a really cute show. Really weird, eccentric. I loved it, and I still love it, and it was really fun to revisit. And also beyond that, I'm gathering ideas for a new book that's going to be titled Drained, and I'm going to write it for NaNoWriMo for 2023. It's going to be the first NaNoWriMo I've taken part in, and I am super excited. I've been doing a lot of world building and plotting and all kinds of good stuff, and it's going to be good. And it's also cool because it's going to be the first book that's entirely my own, because the trilogy was something that was born from our improv RPG, like homebrew D&D type games that me and my husband played from when we were first dating to like all the way up to now. And the characters and the worlds in there were things that we built together. So this book, Drained, is going to be something that's just completely my own. And in a way, it's going to kind of like test my ability as a author solo, which is exciting and a little nerve-wracking, but I believe I can do it, and I'm excited about it. And I'm just getting myself November ready. All right, so with that, let's get this thing started. Chapter 13. The base of operations for the criminal known as Doc and his companion, the Baron, was in the scalding desert world of Darlene, in an abandoned storage building a few miles away from the city of Calera. Marcus had moved them here when the Baron had accidentally killed a few people in the city after using them to test out a potent batch of psychedelic drugs. Yet another example of why he was getting tired of the kid. The Baron was dangerous to others and drew far too much attention. It was not just because the Baron's outward, partial, altered appearance that drew constant scorn, but how erratic his unattended actions could be. At the very least, the Baron was loyal, but that only went so far. Doc sat at a beat-up desk they had salvaged to create a semblance of an office area inside of one of the storage units. Sweat rolled down his face, and his dark hair swayed side to side as the squeaky metal fan they had salvaged from one of the units, filled with old-world garbage, oscillated back and forth. It only provided intermittent relief to the sweltering heat. The Baron was in a storage unit down the hall, possibly working on mixing chemicals to create some new type of drug. How did his life turn to this? Marcus thought bitterly. He had been a doctor, damn it. He used to have his own office, with its own temperature control. Marcus lifted the wrist that held his comm, feeling sweat under the band. He thought about looking up her name, Guinevere Matthews. There would be pictures, videos, even news articles. It hadn't been the first time he had thought about her, and it wouldn't be the last. Why did he still give a damn? She had wrecked his whole world and condemned him to live like this. He slicked back to his hair with his free hand, smelling his own body odors and feeling the hair stick down to his head from sweat and feeling disgusted by it all. Marcus had wrestled with ambivalent feelings for years when it came to her. Part of him hated her, but part of him would never be over her. She was also why he had kept such terrible company. Then, as if prompted, he heard a loud explosion down the hall. Marcus ran out of his unit and past the closed units. Gray smoke was billowing from a half-closed unit 10 doors down. He quickly bent down, with one hand tossed up the roll door to the unit, sending a wall of smoke out into the hall. "Baron, what the hells did you do?" Marcus could see the figure of the Baron laying awkwardly straight on the ground. He had ditched the plaid button-up shirt when they moved into the hot storage building. Instead, the Baron wore a sweat and chemical-stained white undershirt and black shorts. Marcus pulled through the synthetic-smelling, chemical-laden smoke to the Baron's side. He put his fingers to the Baron's jugular, checking for a pulse, fingers slipping in the man's sweat. "Guess it's not my lucky day," Marcus thought as he felt a strong pulse. The Baron's bloodshot eyes popped open, looking wildly around. He sat up quickly and stiffly. The Baron chuckled to himself. "Whoopsie." Doc glared daggers at him, feeling his eye twitch with irritation. "Baron." He grabbed the Baron's bristly jaw and turned it, directing the twitchy man's attention. "Why the fuck are you blowing up the lab? These things cost money." He held the Baron's gaze with his icy stare. Marcus loomed over the Baron, shooting him a threatening look. "You are going to be more careful with our equipment." The Baron nodded back against his grip. Marcus patted the Baron's cheeks with his free hand. "Good. Now figure out a way to clear the air out of this area." He stood up and turned away, and his comm sent out a loud chime as he did. He paused and looked down his wrist, then back to the Baron, who started to stand up. "That wasn't you, right?" The Baron gave him a silly smile and an unconvincing, drawn-out no with a giggle afterwards. He had better things to do than to babysit this full-grown man. He walked away, not giving the Baron another look. Marcus moved down the halls of the storage units, going towards the exit. He had had enough of this place for the day. He needed an escape, maybe a stiff drink. His comm gave another chime in the quiet hall. Marcus lifted his wrist and passively flipped through his messages as he walked, expecting something immature from the Baron. But instead, what was there made him stop in his tracks and put his right hand up to his forehead in complete shock. It was a long message from an ID number he didn't recognize. "Dr. Silver, I can't reveal who I am. I am writing you because I have a message from one of your old colleagues. She wanted me to tell you that she knows what she did to you was wrong. She was not entirely in control of herself. She wants to make things right, but she has to deal with a more significant problem before she can. Once it's taken care of, she will see what she can do to help you." What was this? A prank? Marcus wanted to write back to tell the anonymous person exactly where they could go. But what if this was real? Did that mean Gwen was trying to fix things? He really wanted it to be real. Marcus bit down on his thumb as he thought through his next move. Dr. Daisy Ray was finishing up a report document in Guinevere's office when her comm message alert went off. She sighed heavily as she read Dr. Silver's message. Gwen was deep into working on the third incarnation of her crystal-powered gun. Should I tell her what he wrote? Daisy questioned herself. It might be vital for her to know how what she did had affected Dr. Silver. Guinevere had always had a way of getting tunnel vision and disregarding others when she was on a big project. It had been what Daisy had assumed was happening when she claimed to have been taken over by Avenger. She still didn't fully know if she believed Guinevere's story of the alien parasite. She was glad that Gwen seemed more of her usual self. Gwen's project seemed very important to her, and Daisy almost didn't want to bother her friend. She was on the fence about wanting to help push Gwen back to Dr. Silver. Gwen had confided in her about their first date experience and the kiss she had shared with Dr. Silver. When she spoke about it, Daisy could see something in her friend that she had never seen before. Gwen had never been interested in anyone romantically over the decades she had been friends with her, so she assumed that Gwen had just been scared of their growing relationship when she made the mistake of pushing Dr. Silver out of Gwentech. Daisy remembered Gwen had many different kinds of people come forward with their crushes in the past. Most of them were too intimidated by Gwen to go directly to her. Instead, they would confide in her, hoping she would relay their messages. Daisy usually would, but Gwen never would give any of them a chance, to the point of sometimes being cruel. Even now, Daisy would still try to help her, but it was only a playful joke lately. She never thought she would see any kind of person get past the walls Gwen had built up around herself. She just wished that that person had been someone else besides Dr. Silver. Daisy didn't like that he was committing crimes across the system. He was making a name for himself and calling himself Doc now. Perhaps she should give him an opportunity to redeem himself. Daisy sighed once more. This message was important. Guinevere would have to be told. Daisy took a deep breath and spoke up. Guinevere was at a work table in her office, assembling the third incarnation of her crystal-powered gun. The second one had still been too weak. This third one would be the one, she thought, while putting it all back together. The only sounds in her office were her tinkering and the clacking of keys on the keyboard behind her. Daisy was working on a document on the mirroring terminal at her now organized desk. So far as she could tell, Avenger's influence on her mind seemed to have ended, but she couldn't know for sure. Daisy's calm alarm sounded in the silence, and she could hear her friend sigh. Guinevere had assumed it was Blust, planning to take her out for the night. Daisy had casually dated throughout their entire friendship, but it seemed like her relationship with Blust was becoming serious. Guinevere? She turned around quickly. Daisy only used her full name when something serious happened. Daisy pursed her lips before continuing. Marcus wrote me back. I think you need to read what he wrote. She walked over behind Daisy so she could read the message now showing on Daisy's comm screen. If this is true, you tell her she has hurt me more than she can ever know. I'm glad she didn't plan things to go this way. Tell her I'm still angry, but I forgive her. I'll be ready for her if the time comes. Guinevere's breath hitched, and her eyes began to water. So Marcus didn't hate her. She felt like he should. She wished she could fix things with him sooner, but at least he would hold out till she finished with Avenger. Guinevere was determined to fix her mistakes. Avenger just had to come first. The night bliss came like clockwork. He looked at Daisy as if she hung the moons, and she was reminded of how Marcus had looked at her on the dance floor of Titania More. Daisy asked if she wanted her to stay, but she insisted they go and have fun. Once Daisy left, Guinevere spread out the second small spiral notebook on her desk and opened it to the page she had last read. Guinevere knew if she could find another crystal's location, it would be where she could find Avenger. Then, the next time she engaged him, she would be ready with her weapon. But unfortunately, in the second half of this journal, Robert's writing was short, choppy, and extremely difficult to read, even more so than usual. She could almost see the torment he suffered in each shaky letter. Here is another location. Earth is not the only planet anymore. Can't believe how amazing the other worlds look. Altered people look fucking weird. Next crystal was taken to the world Prime, the lowest area where they first started building up. She stopped and wondered how he could have known about Planet Prime and the Altered. The only Gaian humans that left the world were at first only scientists and astronauts. Then the first colony world was Darlene, and later came the bunker settlements on Prime before the cities were built. The father of alteration, Tulliver Dawson, took a long time to perfect the mineral mixture that, when injected, could bring on alteration of the skin. It took even longer for alteration to become the norm among the humans of Prime. If he did get to see altered humans in a large group, Avenger must have kept him alive until he was over 100 years old. The realization made her sick to her stomach. Bunker Complex, with Avenger's eye painted on the door. 82315. Wow! With this, Guinevere thought, it shouldn't be too hard to find the place. Robert had, with just a few words, narrowed down where they would need to look. Planet Prime had an undercity that was comprised of utility buildings and bunkers where the first people that migrated to Prime from Gaia and Darlene used to live. They had eventually built huge cities to live in and abandoned the old bunkers in the undercity. The city layers had reached higher and higher with every passing century. Guinevere remembered setting up signal relays through each layer. Otherwise, the signal for the comms couldn't get between the metal of each layer, reaching the satellite receivers above the atmosphere. Prime was made of three substantial round layers from bottom to top: the undercity, the blacklight district, and the surface. Prime had been a difficult planet to set up, but Guinevere had done it, and in the process she learned about the history of the world and the altered. The humans of Prime had settled on the planet in the hope of building a better civilization than the harsh climate of Darlene. Unfortunately, Prime had proven to be nearly the same type of climate. They compensated by building giant cities to avoid the planet's desert surface. They had a famous Gaian-born astronaut and scientist named Tulliver Dawson, who had created the chemical mixture behind alteration. A decade after his death, the majority of the planet had taken up the practice of body alteration, and once technology allowed it, body modification upgrades. Guinevere rubbed her eyes and flipped through a few blank pages until she found Robert's following entries. Kudos if you got this far. I'm not going to do this too much longer. Let the pain end. Let me die. End me, Avenger. Death is better than being stuck watching myself rotten. When writing these short sentences, he had been trapped in the bunker by Avenger, who tortured him and tried to break his resolve. Avenger wanted the crystal Robert had taken from him as a child. The tiny piece was Robert's most prized possession. When Avenger had asked for it, all it took was for Robert to tell him no, and the power of his desire to keep it drove Avenger out of him for a while. Guinevere had been able to do the same thing in the underground church. Only my goal to help is keeping myself alive. Need to get information out of that bastard. Little bit more for you folks. You will need to find a room. After his advice had saved her life, she felt guilty for underestimating Robert. He was a simple-minded man, but because of him, they actually had a chance to go against Avenger. Guinevere resumed reading the choppy sentences with a newfound reverence. There were not many more pages left, and she could feel his words leading to a conclusion, and she wasn't ready for his story to be over. Commander's office is the one. Open with a key. Not sure where the key is. The crystal is under the bed. A black box with no lock. I've got you to it. Nearly done with what is needed. Ending things soon. Good luck, friend. Guinevere was on the last sentence, and she paused before reading it. Robert Higgins had been a passive staple for the past few years of her life, and this would be his last words. She read them slowly, giving them the importance they deserved. Death will set me free from the monster in my mind. Hey, this is A.L.McCarroll. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. Remember to give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, also turn on notifications so you never miss a chapter. Don't forget to follow me on my social media platforms for updates. You can find the links in the description box. Thank you again for watching. Stay tuned and take care.